Most cat guardians have had the experience of trying very hard and often struggling and maybe even failing to get their cat in the cat carrier before an appointment at the vet. So today we're going to talk all about how to choose a cat carrier that your cat and your veterinarian will be happy with. And we're joined by veterinarian Dr. Mansum Yau, who happens to have written a really fun book all about cat carriers.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Positive Post in Conversation. I'm Zazie Todd, and I'm joined, as always, by my friend and colleague Christy Benson. And hey, Christy, people keep asking us for more episodes on cats, so I'm extra happy that Dr. Mansum is joining us today. Is Apricat with you today?
Apricot is here. He's beside me on the desk, curled up on top of it's like stack of three different beds and a heating pad. But he is not oddly on my lap, which is where he normally is placed.
That is most unusual. So we're here with Dr. Mansum Yau. Dr. Yau graduated from the Ontario Veterinary College in 2010 and earned her certificate in canine massage from the Royal Canadian College of Massage Therapy in 2025. She is human animal bond and fear-free level 3 certified and passionate about preventative care and client education. When she's not caring for cats and dogs, she enjoys reading, writing, painting, drawing, performing clean stand-up comedy, raising awareness for endangered animals, and exploring nature with her one-eyed dog Penny and her adventure cat Boo. She's the author and illustrator of The Ins and Outs of Cat Carriers, a veterinarian's guide to cat carriers, which is available wherever cat lovers read, and I love that way of putting it. She also shares tips for cats and dogs at pet events and on Instagram and on YouTube. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Mansum.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
We're very pleased to have you here. So can you tell us, as a veterinarian, why are you interested in cat carriers?
Yeah, it's a very unusual thing to be passionate about, but over the years, I noticed as a veterinarian that the cat care experience sets a tone for how well the appointment goes. So if the cat's already stressed in the care by the time they get to the vet, they're a lot harder to handle, a lot harder to examine and treat. And I also noticed that people would show up late to appointments or not at all, like because they couldn't even get their cat into the carrier. And even if the cat's sick, even if it's a senior cat, people still struggle getting their cats into the carrier. And then because they can't get to the vet, their treatment is delayed. And there's also the concern that people like either people I work with or the cat owners can get injured while getting their cat into or out of the carrier as well.
So I know we're going to be talking quite a bit about cat carriers, but what should, just sort of as a preliminary thought, what should people look for in a cat carrier?
I would look for a carrier with more than one door or opening, especially one on top, because having a door on top makes it a lot easier to pick up your cat, like lift it out of the carrier or drop it in. A lot of the older carriers, a lot of the simple ones only have one door in the front. And when there's only one door in the front, it's harder to get them in and out.
I think I've heard you talk about having a drawer to get
Yes.
the cat out as well, and I think that's a nice innovation.
Yeah, I wish there were more carriers with drawers. I only know of two carriers. One is soft-sided and one is hard-sided that are designed to open like a drawer. So you don't have to pull your cat out or dunk them out. Um, I wish there were more carriers with that design.
Hmm. Seems like a good idea. Sometimes I see carriers that are basically a rucksack for the cat with a clear compartment so that the cat is fully on view and the cat can see, but they're also being seen. What do you think of that style of carrier?
It really depends on your cat's personality. I like spelling personality with a U, Purrso. Uh, yeah. So if you have a scaredy cat, like the stereotypical scaredy cat, having a carrier with a big window can really stress them out. There's like no place to hide. Whereas if you have a cat that's curious and wants to see the world, being stuck in a cave with no window, for them, that's boring and frustrating because they want to see outside. So it really depends on the personality of your cat.
Sorry, there's a helicopter is flying over our farm right now, so the dogs had all activated. So, as a veterinarian, what other tips do you have for guardians who want their cat to be more comfortable and relaxed at the vet?
One word, gabapentin. Have you heard of gabapentin before?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a calming pain medication. It's not a real sedative. It's a pain medication that has uh, a, uh, a positive side effect of making cats calm and sleepy. So rather than be sleepy than to be stressed and having panic attacks. So it's something you can give at home 2 hours before a vet appointment and also the night before. It's usually available as a capsule. So you open up the capsule and mix the powder with food, or you can just pop the capsule in the back of the throat. But if that's too hard, a lot of clinics have it compounded as a liquid medication that you can squirt into the mouth.
And just to interject, I think I don't know. Maybe this is different with cat guardians, but a lot of dog guardians struggle with how to bring this up with their vet if their vet doesn't offer it to start. So, do you have like sort of a, here's how to bring this up with your vet? The whole need to have medication beforehand.
Yeah, so you can be honest with your vet and say, like, my cat's yowling the whole time in the car, panicking, scratching, like damaging their nails. I'm getting scratched, like, or bit, and just be honest with them about how stressful it is. Just like, it's not that you don't want to take your cat to the vet, it's just that it's just so stressful for both of you that, is there anything that I can give at home that makes the whole experience less stressful? Um, and Yeah, gabapentin is not something you have to give every day. It wears off after 12 to 24 hours. At low doses, it's safe for kidney disease too. So it's a pretty safe medication. It's not like a real sedative.
That's good to know. And
Yeah.
I have a cat who is actually really good at going to the vet. Fortunately, Melina, she's quite happy there. She's been going to the same vet for a very long time now, and she knows all the staff. She's quite happy. But she recently had radioactive iodine treatment, and so although we don't normally give her gabapentin, we did give her gabapentin before that because it was a different clinic and it was going to be more stressful for her. So we thought that would help. The vet actually recommended it in that case. So
Yeah, because she had to stay there for several days, right?
that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Great. So you have at the back of your book, you actually have a fairly comprehensive list of all the different types of cat carriers. I did not know that there were so many different cat carriers that exist. Did it take you a long time to research all of those?
It did. This is not even a comprehensive list. There's so many that I had to cut from the list because otherwise, like the book would have been twice the length. So I included the ones that are more unique, that have something interesting about them. Like there's a carrier that has a built-in fan, for example. And then there's a couple carriers with drawers, like I mentioned earlier. There's carriers with there's one made in Italy with a built-in litter box. I haven't been able to find it in Canada, but if you live in Italy, I hope you can find it.
Maybe useful for travel by airplane or if you're going traveling with your cat,
Yeah, in the
perhaps.
car. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it's a really fun book and you've got some jokes in there and you also happen to be a stand-up comedian. So how did you get into being a comedian alongside being a vet?
I didn't plan on it. In fact, if you had told me 5 years ago, one day you're going to do stand-up comedy, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, you're crazy. So I wanted to get better at writing jokes because I was writing jokes for this book. And I also fell in love with public speaking. A cat company asked me to do some public speaking for them. And I fell in love with public speaking. And I thought, well, if I take a stand-up comedy course, I can kill two birds with one stone. I actually really hate that phrase. We need a less violent phrase in the English language, like uh, a way to feed two birds with one hand, maybe. uh, so I can get better at writing jokes and I can practice public speaking, talking on stage. And so I took a course and then I took a second one and I plan on taking a third one. So every class we had to tell jokes on stage and do crowd work. And so even though stand-up comedy is not the same as regular public speaking. It's a form of public speaking.
I sort of feel like humor is kind of underused in like the environment of professional pet care. You know, veterinarians and dog trainers too. I feel like there could be a lot. It's such a useful way for people to sort of transmit information and make a like a really warm situation. And I know we're often dealing with tricky situations. You know, I mean, I imagine it's even more so with a veterinarian rather than a dog trainer. But you know, you're dealing with tricky times and people are upset. But how, like, do you feel like that sort of bled into your work as a vet as well? Do you see yourself using humor in more situations now that you've kind of become a professional at it?
Yes, yeah, I would say so. So, I'm when I make educational videos, like some of them have more of a like a comedic element to them, and when I'm stressed at work, I find that comedy is a good coping mechanism as well. Obviously, there are situations that are not appropriate to be making jokes in, like if you're saying goodbye to a pet, that's like the worst time to be making a joke. Yeah, but there are times when, you know, you crack a joke and you can just like see people visibly relax. Like, 'cause a lot of people are stressed going to the vet. Like, I'm stressed going to the doctor. Like, I like I had a doctor tell me recently, like, you're too stressed here. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, who goes to the doctor? Relax. Like, yeah.
Totally. So actually, that kind of leads into one of our questions. You do have a viral video of you brushing your cat's teeth on Instagram. So can you tell us about a little bit more about that video and then why toothbrushing is so important?
Happy to. I didn't expect the video to go viral, to be honest. I recorded it last February during Dental Health Month. I recorded in a rush. I was like, well, I have to brush my cat's teeth anyway. I brush my cat's teeth every day. And I was like, I might as well make a video before the end of the month, before it's no longer Dental Health Month. And if I'd known that all these people would be watching it, maybe I would have worded it differently. But all these people are like, I can't put my cat in my lap. My cat won't stay on my lap. And I was like, nowhere in the video did I mention putting your cat on your lap. Is this that my cat is a lap cat? And for filming purposes, it was easier to have him on my lap than to have him like off to the side. And yeah, I was kind of shocked at how people responded to the video, but also pleased that they're interested in watching the video that they watched in the first place. Because I would say one of the best ways to keep your cat healthy is to brush their teeth, because dental health doesn't just impact like aesthetics and not just what the way the teeth look. Dental health negative, Poor dental health negatively impacts kidney health, heart health, as well as liver health. And I see so many cats at work with such painful teeth that I'm sure there are so many cats that are cranky and unhappy because they have toothaches that they can't tell us about because they can't point at which tooth is hurting, right? They can't tell us which tooth hurts.
Mm. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes so that if anybody wants to go and look at it, they can do so. And you're also an illustrator, so you're just incredibly talented, basically. And you did your own illustrations for this book, and they're adorable. I really love
Thank
them.
you.
So how did you get into being an illustrator as well?
To be honest, I got into illustrating after I got over my fear of making mistakes while drawing. So I found these erasable crayons in a grocery store of all places. And I was like, oh, if I draw the wrong thing, I can just erase it. And then I eventually switched to an iPad to draw the cartoons. And on an iPad, you can erase, mistakes. And it doesn't, if you don't like the way it looks, you can just reverse the drawing. So yeah, I would say I'm a writer first, illustrator second. I'm a much slower illustrator than I am a writer. And you can see some of my progress, like some of the cartoons that I drew at the beginning, because it took me around 6 years to finish this book. So in the beginning, my drawings are a lot more rudimentary. And then by the end, they're better. I mean, it's still could be, could be better, but better than the beginning. So like I'll give you an example of like the earlier cartoons that I drew. 'Cause, like, so for example, like you can see like this is very simple. Like there's nothing fancy about the cartoon other like I love the eyes. And so this is like called the Magic Towel cartoon. So just, I wrote about like how towels are really handy for helping with getting your cat into a carrier and keeping them comfortable in the carrier. And then by the end of the book, you'll notice that the cartoons have become more complicated. So I drew a cartoon of all three of my friends' cats. And it says, a picnic is a state of mind and can be made anywhere. So those are her three cats, and there are three different types of care. So this is the vintage wicker carrier. So back in the 1940s, before that, they used wicker carriers. This is a more modern Italian carrier that is made of plastic and shaped like a picnic hamper. And then this one is based on a real carrier that I own, shaped like a Volkswagen van, a soft-sided carrier. Yeah.
Very
Doesn't have
cool.
stickers. My actual carrier doesn't have stickers on it, but when I drew the cartoon, I was like, it's a van. It must have happy stickers on it.
And I think I must be old because I'm old enough to have had a wicker carrier and used a wicker carrier so
Oh,
a long time ago. So can we actually come back to the towels? Because the first drawing you showed us was of a towel. Tell us a bit
yes.
more about how people can use a towel to help with the carrier.
Yeah, so if you have one of those cats that sticks like limbs out and at weird angles while you're trying to get your cat into the carrier, one of the tips is to wrap your cat in a towel or a blanket and then put them in because then there are less limbs sticking out and they're less likely to scratch you as well because a towel provides a level of layer of protection. It covers their eyes and it can make them feel more safe, kind of like being swaddled like a baby.
Excellent. Good. And your cat is an adventure cat. So I'm going to ask you in a moment to tell us a story. There's a lovely story you've got in the book about a surprise that happened when you were out with your adventure cat. But so does that change the kind of carrier that you use? Do you like to have a different kind of carrier when you're going out on adventures?
Yes. So for those of you who don't know what an adventure cat is a cat that goes hiking, camping, paddleboarding, uh, snowshoeing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, they spend time outdoors with their cat parents, supervised, and sort of wandering around. And I recommend having a carrier because one, it's a place for your cat to retrieve to if they're scared or if they're tired and they need a break. Then usually most people wear a backpack when they take their adventure cat out because then it frees up their hands to, take pictures, to hold a hiking stick or a ski pole or what have you. So because if you're holding a carrier, like you don't have a free hand to hold other things. So backpacks are great. There are two different orientations for the backpacks. So you have the backpacks that are more vertical. So the cat ends up sitting up most of the time, which is not as comfortable. And then you have the longer, more horizontal type where they can actually lie down. That's the type that I recommend.
Because it's more
And
comfortable for the cat.
yes, yeah. So some of the backpacks are too small for average size cats, and they end up just sitting up the whole time.
So how did you get an adventure cat, or did you sort of like get a kitten and make an adventure cat?
The latter. So I, when I adopted Boo, well, let me back up a bit. I was planning to get a dog after, like right after I graduated from vet school. I was planning to get a dog, and then someone brought him into work. He was a wee little kitten that someone found stuck in a fence by construction yard, and it was love at first sight. I looked into the kennel and fell in love with him. Like the tech asked me if I wanted to adopt him. I was like, sure, he's not a dog, but I'll adopt him. And I basically trained him as if he were a dog. Like I trained him to walk on a leash, I trained him to wear a harness. Um, I carrier trained him as if I were like crate training a dog. And this is before I even knew of the concept adventure cat. Like, I don't know exactly when that term was coined, but my cat's 15 now. So this is before it was popular, before Instagram was even before it was even invented.
Mm. And so you've got a funny story in the book about one time when you were out with Boo. Can you tell us about that?
So let me double check that's the same story because there are two. I can think of two funny stories. They were funny
Ah,
after the fact, maybe not while they
yes,
were
that's
happening. Yes,
yes, that's what
yeah,
I thought after the fact.
yeah, after the fact. Because so the one that I wrote about in the book is when I so I took him to Drumheller. For those of you who've never heard of Drumheller, it's uh, a place in Canada, in central Canada, in Alberta, where um, there's canyons. Like the landscape there is really cool, and I took him hiking there. I brought a backpack, thinking that he'd want to be in the backpack, but he refused to stay in it, and he wanted to walk on his own. I was like, sure, and then he walked for a long time. I was surprised, and then all of a sudden he just like stopped and refused to move. And I was like, oh, what's wrong, Boo? And I went to like, are you tired? Do you want me to carry you? I picked him up and then quickly realized that he was actually the reason why he wasn't moving is because he was peeing. And I ended up getting the pee all over my clothes. And if any of you have a male cat, well, any kind of, even female cat pee doesn't smell good. But I was just like, okay, good thing I have a change of clothes in my car. Um, so if he could talk, he'd probably be like, I'm trying to pee, leave me alone. And it's natural instinct for cats to pee in dirt. It's like usually they'll pee and then they might cover it up, or if they have to poo, they'll like dig a hole and then poo in it and then cover it up. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. I just didn't know that that's what he was doing. Yeah.
Yes, I think it definitely falls into the category of funny with hindsight, but not so
Yes.
much at the time.
Yeah. It was a very smelly car ride because the whole way home, all I could smell was cat pee on myself. Even though I changed my clothes, I could still smell it.
One
Yeah.
time when we were moving house, and I think this is why this story resonated with me, I had the cat in a carrier on my lap. Um, and the cat was, this was a long time ago, the cat was actually quite terrified and peed, and it leaked from the carrier onto me. And
Oh.
we had quite a way to go, so it was a long time before I was able to change into some clean clothes. So,
Oh.
again, it was not funny at the time, but
Yeah.
with hindsight, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you actually have so much information in here in your book. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about cat carriers? Are there any other especially important things for people to know?
Wow. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of information in the book. I recently learned that there are people who don't even know that cat carriers or that pet carriers exist. Like I had someone ask me, "Can I just use a baby car seat for my dog?" And I was just like, "What? No, like because there's already ones for dogs, specifically designed for pets. Like, why would you use a baby car seat?"
Also,
Yeah.
I can't imagine the training plan to get them.
Yeah,
The cat is not going to stay.
no, I was just like, "Oh my God." Or, um, yeah, they were lucky they were in a collision and the pet survived, luckily. But
Mm.
yeah, it's something that's not talked about enough. So I actually wrote the first draft for my next book, which has both a cat and a dog in it. And it's a kid's book, so I'm really excited about it.
Oh, that's very exciting. You'll have to come back and tell us about that when it's published.
It might take a
So
while.
yeah, it's a slow process.
Yes, as you know, I can see your books behind you there. Wag, purr, and bark. Oh.
Yes. Yeah, so it's time for us to move on to the book section. So, what have you been reading recently that you really loved?
So I have to admit, most of the books that I've read recently were quite depressing, so I won't be sharing them. I hope you don't mind me sharing a book that I reread. Have you heard of Bony Legs before?
No.
So this is a kid's book from 1983. Oh no, sorry, 1988. And this book was one of my favorite books as a kid. Like before I could even read, I would ask my parents to read it to me over and over again. And now it's not surprising that, looking back, I'm like, oh, of course became a vet because there's a cat and a dog in the story, and it's not just about a witch. The book is about being helpful and kind to others, and there's a cat and a dog, um, a little kid and a witch, and it's a great book to read to kids because they can learn from the story about how why it's important to treat others well, even if even if you don't get anything out of it. It's important to be kind and helpful to others, and yeah, it's a very fun book. Like I'll give you a sneak peek here. You can see the witch has a bathtub that has feet.
Yeah, I love the feet. Lots of feet.
Yeah.
Who is that by?
Pat Edwards.
Bony Legs and Other Stories by Pat Edwards, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So,
Yes.
if people want to get your book, first of all, where do they go? And then where do they go if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, my book is available everywhere cat lovers read. So Amazon, Kindle, Kobo, Apple Books, Google Play, and it's also available at a couple of the local stores in Vancouver. So Happy Cat has copies of my book.
Perfect. Good. And if people want to find out more about you, they can go to your Instagram and your YouTube.
Yes, and if you're on LinkedIn, I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, and I'll put links to those in the show notes too. So the book is The Ins and Outs of Cat Carriers, a veterinarian's guide to cat carriers, written and illustrated by Dr. Mansum Yau. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Mansum. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. I feel like I could go on and on for hours, but I'm sure you have lots of other things to do. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you and learn more about you. And a special shout out today to our listeners in Nanaimo, BC. We're very glad that you've joined us. And wherever you're listening or watching from, if you've enjoyed this episode, and especially if you know someone with a cat who has trouble with their carrier, please let them know about this episode so that they can listen or watch to and learn more about it as well. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.